The year was 2184, exactly a century after the 40-year war began to rage between Earth and the competitively hostile alien civilizations that encroached upon the territory of mankind. Luckily, Earth had succeeded due to a tremendous act of unity. All countries, all governments decided in unison that if they were going to win this war, they could not be divided. All former governments disbanded, reforming to one single figure of authority. To solidify this, all countries and continent names were disbanded and rebranded with one name alone: Super Earth. The authority of Super Earth decided it was crucial to expand the civilization's defenses and devised a tactical plan to seek out as many resources as possible from any available planets within their reach. Automated mining bases were established, research labs, and resource extraction sites populated the surrounding planets. It was the duty of the incredibly fierce, elite soldiers known as HELLDIVERS to liberate these planets, to cleanse them of any harmful threats that stopped Super Earth from capitalizing on their resources, ensuring liberty and prosperity was achieved. Each planet had an assigned ship and a squad of HELLDIVERS anointed to it. It was their duty to maintain the integrity of the on-planet systems and combat any potential threats that arose. On one of the previously liberated planets, dominated by the terminids, an invasive insect-like species, problems arose. Automated reports from an oil extraction site had signaled substantial drops in production, amongst other unknown internal issues. It was the responsibility of the Hammer of Dawn, a mighty Super-Earth ship, to solve this issue. The Hammer of Dawn was an epic and powerful vessel, armed with incredibly strong orbital weapons, capable of being precisely shot down from orbit onto the planet, so long as the HELLDIVERS signaled where they were targeting. These 4 HELLDIVERS present on the ship were arguably the most powerful weapon in its arsenal. With their intense combat training, elite-level armor, weapons, and specialized knowledge, they were a surefire way to counter any common threat with efficiency. Sergeant Grayson, a precise sharpshooter, specialized in long-range shots. His weapon of choice was the R-63 Diligence, Super Earth's gold standard for long-range, high-caliber weapons. Its incredible accuracy and powerful impact paired perfectly with Grayson's patient, calculated mindset. Corporal Blackwood preferred a less precise, more aggressive delivery method. His pride and joy, the SG-225 Breaker, was a force to be reckoned with at close range. This booming and powerful shotgun was capable of causing devastating carnage, every shot akin to the swing of a barbarian's powerful sword. Blackwood's preferred to place himself deep amidst the heat of battle, fueled by his burning spirit. The remaining squad members, Sergeant Weathers and Private Anderson, both preferred the AR-23 Liberator, the most standard weapon used by the HELLDIVERS. Versatile, powerful, and quick to reload, this assault weapon was a practical, effective choice for combat. Each soldier was armed not only with their primary weapons, but a secondary pistol, a bandolier strung with grenades, an emergency medical syringe, and most importantly, high-tech flares used to signal orbital strikes delivered by the Hammer of Dawn. The squad of valiant men approached their assigned positions in the combat bay and prepared for drop. As they each stepped onto the weighted plates, clicking them into position, their feet locked into the floor. HELLDIVERS drop in 30 seconds. The voice echoed throughout the ship.
"This is it, boys,"
Grayson exclaimed.
"We aren't quite sure what the situation is, so be prepared as always."
It's just a couple of bugs. This'll be no problem,"
Anderson confidently stated.
"Hope you didn't forget to pack bug spray,"
Weathers jokingly replied.
HELLDIVERS drop in 10 seconds.
The intercom stated.
"I'm serious,"
said Grayson.
"Just be careful."
"Roger that, Sarge," Weathers said. The platforms they stood on slowly began to lower into their locked position, fully encapsulating each soldier. As steam hissed from the hydraulic pistons, the familiar sound confirmed to the HELLDIVERS it was go time. The mechanical locks engaged, and the gyroscopic motors aligned the pods into position. The intercom inside of the metal chambers encasing the soldiers echoed.
3, 2, 1. Hellpods engaged.
Suddenly, the volley of 4 pods shot from the ship, their engines roaring, leaving streaks of smoke behind them as they descended towards the planet. As their vibrating pods propelled them deeper into the hazy, amber-colored atmosphere, they braced for impact. The lower engines of the pods deployed, slowing their descent seconds away from impact. As they hit the surface, the soil cracked beneath them, sending dust and dirt flying in all directions. Amidst the cloud of dust, the pods opened. The hissing sound of hydraulics could be heard once more as the mechanical hatch atop the disposable pods shot off into the distance, making way for the elevating platforms containing the soldiers. This planet was far different from Earth. The air, thick with haze, was sour and unbreathable. The distant landscape painted with rugged mountains protruding from the gritty, rust-covered soil. The closest thing to water on this planet were the occasional pools of sludge, a toxic runoff caused by the scattered geysers, leaking out fumes into the atmosphere. As for surface life, other than sparse amounts of incredibly primitive forms of vegetation, there was nothing. Seemingly, the only things on this planet that held any sort of importance were hiding deep beneath the ground. The squad gathered together, awaiting direction from the highest-ranking officer.
All right, men. Let's get to this rig and find out what's going on,
Sergeant Grayson said, pulling out his map interface. A voice from the Hammer of Dawn echoed through the comms.
We've marked the location on your map, but be careful. The impact of your pods may have shaken up a few of those terminites.
Roger that, Command.
Grayson replied. Command was correct. Only a few short yards away was a cave-like opening in the dirt. This was an entrance to a terminate colony, and they don't appreciate visitors knocking on their front door. The ground beneath the squad began to rumble slightly. There was no mystery as to why. Each of the Helldivers knew these creatures well, and they knew what was about to happen. Instinctually, they all assumed defensive postures, bracing their weapons vigilantly.
We need to shut down that nest ASAP,
Weathers stated.
Roger that, Sarge,
Blackwood replied. His eyes scanned the dust and rock-covered surroundings.
There,
he said, as his eyes locked onto the burrow entrance.
Cover me,
he stated.
I'll destroy it.
He began to navigate the harsh terrain, sprinting closer, vaulting over rocks and leaping over pools of mud.
Incoming,
Grayson said, his eyes locked onto the nest. Coming out of the entrance was a disgusting sight. Terminid warriors, powerful insect-like creatures anchored to the ground with 4 powerful legs, encased in hard, spike-covered shells. Their main means of attack were their 2 frontal arms, curled back in a manner akin to that of a scorpion. Acidic saliva seeped through their sharpened teeth, hidden beneath their armor-plated skulls. Their biology was very intentionally designed for attack, the only weak points being the soft underbelly hidden beneath them, and their thorax, which contained their most crucial internal organs. But this biological design was nothing in comparison to the design of mankind. As the first insect crawled out of the cave, Grayson delivered it a single piercing bullet, splitting through its armor and tearing directly into its vulnerable insides. Blackwood continued to sprint onward, as he knew his fellow squadmates had his back.
Ha ha ha! Have a taste of liberty!
Weathers exclaims, confidently firing his Liberator directly into the swarm, chipping away at their armored shells, exposing their vulnerable flesh. Anderson attentively focused his fire on the same targets as Weathers, delivering decimating shots that tore into the insects. Grayson picked off any that straggled away from the herd, firing skull-shattering shots and recocking his weapon in a perfect rhythm. The landscape in front of the men was painted in the acidic remains of these creatures.
How about a hot cup of liberty?
Blackwood exclaimed as he lobbed a grenade directly into the cave. After a few short seconds, the explosive triggered, collapsing the internal structure of the cave, sending dust, soil, and what was left of the insects flying in all directions. The soldiers happily rejoiced. They lived for this. The heat of battle was the lifeblood of a Helldiver. This was as exciting as it got. Another satisfying victory, a highlight in the eyes of the soldiers, a story to go back home with and proudly tell their children.
God, I love my job,
Blackwood said.
Yeah, that was great, but we could have done better,
Grayson stated. Blackwood looked confused.
What do you mean, sir? You didn't see that? They stood no chance.
Yes, but look at this, Grayson firmly said, leading Blackwood to a pool of insect remains, pointing towards a plume of smoke.
Their blood is acidic. What do you think will happen if we get too close? We can't just go charging in their head first. We need to clear the area before we gain ground.
Blackwood was disgruntled. Though he disagreed, he silently nodded his head towards Grayson and accepted his words. Focusing their attention back towards locating the site, they ventured forth, cautiously navigating the environment, straying away from the toxic geysers, mantling sheets of rock that protruded from the soil, and leaping over pools of toxic mud.
I sure am glad I can't smell anything through this mask,
Anderson states.
Yeah, no kidding.
Weathers agrees. This land was completely inhabitable for humans. That was starkly clear to the men. They soon reached the outskirts of the extraction site, assessing the damage. Upon the large flattened platform, one of the support structures guiding an extractor appeared to have been knocked over. It laid completely on its side, seeping out fluids back into the soil. Grayson wondered if it was even possible the creatures they encountered could have done this much damage. They were strong, but strong enough to break reinforced alloys? It couldn't be.
You two, get a closer look at the site. Me and Anderson will keep an eye out,
Grayson commanded, signaling towards the fallen heap of twisted metal and exposed tubing. Blackwood and Weathers carried on until they were close enough to investigate. It appeared the structure lying on the ground had been torn in half. The raw metal, still shining, had not yet been oxidized where it was severed. They were puzzled. They radioed the Hammer of Dawn, currently orbiting above the planet.
There's no way we can fix this right now. We need a full team.
After explaining the damage, the ship radios back.
Negative, soldier. We don't have those kinds of resources right now. We won't allow any main-level employees to step foot on that planet until we know it's safe. Assess and secure the area.
The two men walked closer to the base of the fallen drilling rig, focusing their attention on the center of the structure that tunneled deep into the earth.
Take a look at this,
Weathers says. Blackwood approaches, turning on his flashlight. He peers down the well in the ground. Something strange is shimmering beneath the light he's casting.
There's something down there,
his voice echoes,
but I can't quite tell what it is.
Suddenly, his speech is interrupted as giant, crab-like legs begin to pull the grotesque insect from the bottom of the hole, its body dripping in oil. It frantically tries to climb to the top of the well. Though its slick body occasionally struggles, it claws at the steel walls, making an awful, ear-piercing noise like nails on a chalkboard. Blackwoods, who is peering down the hole, has little time to react as he instinctively lunges backwards, swiftly unholstering his shotgun. As the creature's pointed legs pierce into the dirt, only inches away from impaling him, it pulls itself closer, snarling fiercely. Blackwoods, with the barrel of his breaker aligned directly at the beast's growling mouth, squeezes the trigger. A single shell falls to the ground beside him, as a booming crack propels slugs into the alien, instantaneously splattering the contents of its bony skull on the wall behind it. As its body falls into the well, a loud thud can be heard.
Are you okay?
Weathers asks. Yeah, Blackwood replies with frustration in his voice, realizing the engineers who set up this rig put it directly on top of a passage in the colony's tunnel network. Suddenly, his frustration is broken with a loud shrieking noise echoing from below. The soldiers lock eyes.
That ain't good,
Weathers bluntly states. Instinctually, they both attempt to fall back, assuming defensive positions behind the metal wreckage they had come to assess.
Incoming threat!
Blackwood barks into his radio, alerting the other soldiers. A droning swarm of insects begin to fly out of the well, one by one, shrieking loudly as they surface. The soldiers, intense with focus, fight vigorously, ensuring not to miss a single shot. The giant, wretched creatures drop like flies. Grayson, his scope now focused towards the well, holds the sightline down, precisely picking off as many as he can. Anderson deliberately charges towards the men whilst firing into the crowd of insects, attempting to draw them away from his comrades, which are stationed dangerously close. Blackwood continuously pumps slugs into the nearby enemies. Weathers desperately fires as well, the bodies falling mere feet away from them.
Can't we just throw a grenade down the damn thing?
Anderson states.
And blow ourselves up? No way in hell!
Blackwood replies. His shotgun soon runs out of ammo. Needing to reload, the pressure is on for Weathers, now needing to kill twice as many targets. As he begins to fall behind, a loose terminate rages towards Blackwoods. Weathers goes to fire and his magazine clicks. Empty.
Look out!
Weathers exclaims. Blackwood turns and is faced head first by the flying insect. He knows within the matter of a split second, he's done for. It propels towards him, its jaw open,
mouth gaping, exposing its disgusting, rotten throat full of teeth dripping with thick, lime green saliva. His life flashes before his eyes. He closes them and accepts his fate. An ear-piercing crack reverberates through his skull. With one precise shot, Grayson had reduced the beast's head into a fine mist. The hefty body falls atop Blackwood. It takes him a second to realize what had just happened. His eyes widen open, and a desperate strength burns inside of his heart. He heaves intensely, using every fiber of strength in his body to push the headless monster off of him. As its body hits the ground, he rolls on his side, utterly exhausted. The other men, still focused intensely on the immediate threat, whittle down the swarm until all that is left is their lifeless, shell-encased bodies. "Damn, that was close," Anderson exclaims, looking to face Blackwood, who now lies still on the ground. Anderson approaches him and immediately notices Blackwood's armor is coated with insect remains. "Oh, sweet liberty!" the soldier exclaims. A hissing could be heard as smoke rose from Blackwood's lying body, as acid ate away patches of his armor. Anderson shook his comrade, asking if he was all right. Rolling him onto his back, Anderson looked into Blackwood's face, horrified. The acid had begun to melt through his mask, through his armor, and seeped into his flesh. Blackwood's muttered out desperate words, paralyzed in pain. "Stims. I need stims." His comrade responded immediately, pulling out an emergency stim shot, plunging it into Blackwood's chest. Blackwood's gasped for air as the contents of the syringe entered his body and ice-cold fluid ran through his veins, causing his entire body to pulse. Immediately fueled with adrenaline and the concoction of stimulants that passed through his blood-brain barrier, he regained enough strength to push himself back up off the ground. The other two squad mates who had witnessed the scene knew that this was only a temporary solution. There was no telling how long Blackwood could survive for. In a harrowingly ironic scene, just as Grayson had predicted, the enemy was not to be underestimated. The silence broke as the ship command radioed in, coldly repeating what was said previously. "The mission isn't over, soldiers. Assess and secure." "Roger that," Grayson replied. "We need to figure out where the hell this damage is coming from and terminate the issue. We must uphold the mission, no matter what the cost," Grayson exclaimed. "For Super Earth." The other soldiers echoed his words. For Super Earth. This mission was far from complete. As the soldiers pondered their next move, a loud, rhythmic thud could be heard in the distance. Grayson watched intently, scoped into the direction the sound emanated from. The thuds began to get louder. Each time it was heard, a distant rumble felt closer and closer. They could soon feel the ground quake beneath their feet. Grayson, locked in, finally met his sights towards the cause of this impact. "Oh, sweet liberty," he exclaimed. There it was, an absolutely massive, mountainous creature, built like a rock with 4 powerful, bone-encased legs, each as thick as tree trunks. Its armoring looked almost identical to the insects they had previously slain. "Boys," Grayson stated, "I think I may have just found the culprit of our little problem here." The soldiers, squinting, looked into the direction Grayson was so heavily focused on. Their eyes widened. "Take it down, now!" Grayson exclaimed. As the beast began to press forward, Grayson began firing towards its head, each bullet ricocheting off, chipping away flakes of its armor as if he were shooting a cliff face. The other men were desperately doing the same thing, laying fire towards the beast, but to no avail. They had never encountered a monstrosity like this before. The bullets only seemed to fuel its anger as the hulking beast began charging at them faster. "We're going to need to call in an orbital strike," Grayson exclaimed. "There's no way we can accurately target that thing," Anderson rebuted. "Well then, we need to predict its location and time the strike accordingly," Grayson replied, thinking on his feet. Anderson pulled out the flare attached to his belt and input the engagement sequence. The device began to light up, signaling to the ship its exact coordinates. As Anderson threw the pulsing device with all his might, command spoke through the radio. "Orbital strike request received. T-minus 1 minute. Grayson swiftly replied. "Negative, Command. Hold your fire until I say so." Command replied back. "Negative, Grayson. The launch can't be suspended. The strike will arrive T-minus 50 seconds. Anderson looked towards Grayson and said, There's no way it's gonna time out. We're gonna miss the beast. It needs to be precisely hit or the strike is useless.
Suddenly, Blackwood spoke.
Boys, have you ever heard of taming a bull?
Everyone knew exactly what he meant. Anderson responded to his dark insinuation.
But that's suicide. If we're too close to that thing when the strike makes impact, there's no chance of survival.
The disheveled soldier spoke his next words with a strain in his voice.
I know,
Blackwood said,
but it's all we've got.
Weathers looked into Blackwood's bloodshot eyes. He held a weary smile on his face. The radio blared. T-minus 30 seconds.
Blackwoods, are you sure about this?
Weathers said. Look at me. Blackwoods responded, his armor tattered, his body severely wounded.
Do you really think when these stims wear off, I have a fighting chance?
He was right. By the time an escort could come pick them up, there was a high probability he would not survive the trip back to the Hammer of Dawn.
You're brave, Blackwoods. I've always respected that. I always will,
Grayson stated. The beast began to close in on them, crushing rock beneath its powerful legs. Blackwoods lit up a flare, inputting the same sequence Anderson had moments ago. He turned on his radio and spoke to command, requesting a reroute to the orbital strike.
Reroute confirmed,
replied command. He tucked the device into his pocket and began sprinting headfirst towards the beast, his heart throbbing in his chest, his bones aching agonizingly with each step.
Hey!
He shouted at the monstrous creature.
Come get some!
The beast listened to his command and pounded closer and closer. His radio echoed the voice of command. T-minus 10 seconds until the orbital strike. His lungs felt heavy in his chest as he desperately carried on, the distance between them closing in further. The beast, now within striking distance, brought down one of its powerful legs, nearly crushing Blackwood's. As its mighty weight stomped into the ground, a shockwave knocked him onto his back, forcing out what air he had left. His comrades watched in disbelief as a burning light emerged from the haze, illuminating the ground beneath it, shining a spotlight on Blackwood's and the mighty beast. Boiling smoke trailing behind it, the strike was seconds away from making contact. Blackwood's, lying on his back with the missile reflecting upon his glassy eyes, spoke his final words, "For Super Earth." The soldiers stood silent in quiet understanding. The strike was successful, leaving nothing behind but a massive crater amidst a cloud of dust. The beast was defeated, the area secure, and the soldiers' mission complete. After the soldiers' extraction, the squad reported all of what had transpired. Within days, they deployed back, pumping poisonous gas inside of the tunnel connecting to the well. They flushed the remainder of the insect threat away, making way for the escorted engineers who hastily repaired the damage.
I guess we really do have bug spray, don't we?
One of the soldiers stated, staring at the poisonous fumes trickling out of the soil, trying to make light of the dark cloud that hung above all of them. The soldiers would never forget that day. The valiant act that had saved all of them had solidified a message deep within their minds. The greatest thing a soldier can give is sacrifice.